Hello, everybody. How's it going? It's CD's Nuts Podcast. We are back again with another special episode. There's a leaf blower outside of my window that I can do nothing about, and you might hear it in the background on my microphone. But we have
Oh
friends.
boy. Are they getting started on those autumn leaves? I don't know if they're already getting their colors, but
Oh, he's literally outside my window now.
wait,
Yeah,
what?
rev that. Rev it for me, baby. Oh, he
Oh my
stopped.
god.
He's teasing me.
Uh,
He came back.
and here I thought these first few seconds going get into the last time was probably better. Wow, what's going on?
Oh, y'all can hear it.
Yeah, for a split second, that is
What
not so good, not so good. Talk more, talk more, talk more.
What a great way to start a podcast. No one.
Yeah,
You know
This
what?
honestly couldn't be any more perfect considering it's a NASCAR episode and the sounds.
yeah, about that. How about you take it away, Dud?
Yeah, this
You-
is your episode. I'm gonna let you introduce everything here.
So quick introductions out of the way. I'm Dr. Funnut, and I'm joined here by T-Core and Flamini. In today's episode, we are talking mostly about the beginnings of NASCAR, specifically around like 1940 to 1980. And we're gonna start really at the beginning here with how NASCAR started. And it's very interesting because it started with illegal trade,
Bootlegging.
which is
Hmm?
No, it was Rum Runner, right?
yeah, so they in the early 1940s and 30s and 20s, people in NASCAR would hook up their cars to and drive them and use their cars as transport for moonshine, which is very illegal back then and is in some states it is illegal now.
Moonshine is
Oh.
still illegal now? I just thought moonshine was
In-
legal after Prohibition. I thought
in
moonshine
some
was.
states.
It's just some
Well,
I don't
states.
even know.
It's in
The,
some states, but
the
this
name sounds
way
very
they were-
familiar to me, but I haven't really heard of it being,
well,
that kind of stuff.
I'll put it in short. It would be illegal now because they would home make it, and you can't home make moonshine.
Huh.
That's fair.
I
Okay.
see.
So they would hook up their cars and modify their engines and tweak their cars and lighten it up to make go as fast as they can because they would be running from the police all the time. And so in 1947 to 1948, one guy named Bill France Sr., he went ahead and decided to make an organization called NASCAR because, hey, human nature is to be extremely competitive, and since automobiles were becoming more and more explored as transportation, why not see how fast you could go? So they made a rule set in 1948, and NASCAR was created. And the first race they held was at Daytona Beach. The actual beach. Not on the road. They raced at the beach.
No cars got stuck in sand pits? Wait, this
You
was
best
70
believe
years
they
ago.
did.
Wait a second. How
This
many?
is 75 years.
75 years ago. I don't think
Yeah.
they had the tires to do this.
They didn't.
Whose idea was it then?
So the reason why they had to organize it at the beach was because since most of the drivers were known for driving moonshine, they had to race in a secluded spot so they wouldn't be arrested on the spot.
Oh yeah, because the beach is definitely not uber populated by a lot of people that like to go vacation at the beach and live at the beach and it's just Daytona. It's not like it's a populated city or anything.
Ironically enough, it was very successful on its first roundabout because it featured some of the early NASCAR drivers, such as like Junior Johnson, who was really huge for the time,
his name
as
is
he
Junior.
was.
How is he huge? He should be tiny.
Oh, you're funny. you're funny. But
So, with that basically being like the first outing of NASCAR as a whole, like, what were the accidents like, considering it's all New Ground, they were doing it on the freaking beach of all places?
Well, I'm just imagining a Ford Model T, like the pit crews out there, they're cranking the engines with that little thing that they had to insert into the front of the car, and they're just like all looking at each other real menacingly, like, I can crank this faster than you, and then, the car starts off, they all gun out of the gates, and then it's just Ford Model T's going, 20 to 30 miles an hour, they're not fast at all, and they just wreck into each other because it's sand, and they can't drive on sand yet.
Let me build on top of that, okay? NASCAR currently, they have a limit of how many drivers or how many race cars you can have, which is 40. They didn't have the limits.
How many? Is there a number? How many were on the beach?
Let's hold on, let me look it up real quick. I know that the average was like from 50 to 60. The largest race was somewhere like 80 to 100.
80 to 100 cars on the beach?
So keep in mind, this was early on. They eventually had to make bigger tracks and buy out huge portions of land because they were able to sell a lot of tickets from it. And eventually, after the prohibition, the drivers that were transporting it were allowed a free pass because of legality issues, because you got to remember, after the prohibition, during it rather, there was so many people thrown in jail that there was not enough room for prisoners. So you would end up having like 4 to 5 people in a single jail cell.
Yeah.
So for a bit of leeway, they said as long as you don't transport anymore, you can go free. So after that, they had the.
So they lied.
No,
I definitely won't not give this bottle of Jack Daniels to Bruce over here.
Now, I'm gonna backtrack a little bit because I said I'd cover this, but NASCAR's early rule set was very linear and was not very complex at all, which left a lot of loopholes. So there's one guy that I'm going to be mainly talking about this episode who goes by the nickname of Smokey Eunuch. And oh my god, this dude's not in the Hall of Fame. I'm going to keep that in mind. He should be, because of the impact he had on the rule book.
Well, that might not be the same type of Hall of Fame, though, if you think about it. Like,
okay.
Well, hold on. Before you get into it, what do you have to do to get into the NASCAR Hall of Fame? Like, what are the qualifications that are looked for currently?
Like, what even defines that place?
Yeah.
In general.
So, to get into it's like the same aspect for typical Hall of Fames. You have to be a major part of the sport. You have to be a huge pioneer of the sport, or you have to be just better than everyone else, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but the most important thing is consistency. Now, Smokey Eunuch, on top of his mechanical genius, he was also the crew chief for 3 Hall of Fame drivers.
I wish I could talk,
I
but
think
I'm being
that's it.
serenaded by a leaf blower.
Oh,
So
wait, did he cut
those
off?
three.
Oh.
No,
I think
he
you
said-
because of the
I'm
leaf blower.
here, but my lover is outside roaring at me very loudly, so I'm putting myself on mute to not destroy the quality of the beautifulness that is this podcast.
That's understandable. But to briefly cover the 3 drivers that he was a crew chief of, one was named Herb Thomas. The second, and probably the most important one of those, is Fireball Roberts, another guy that has a nickname. And the third one that he had was Buck Baker. Now, NASCAR typically hates rule breakers, despite the fact that every single driver rule breaks and rule bends and tries to find the loophole.
Every single one?
Every single one. It's not even a debate. It's not even close. In fact, last year, Ross Chastain completely abused the rulebook by straight up going gear 5 on the last 2 corners and just used the wall to get into the Final Four of the playoffs.
Is that the clip that you showed me of
Yeah,
the guy?
that is the
Okay,
clip.
that was the
That is the
stupidest thing I have ever seen, and he shouldn't be alive right now. But sure, he's alive and well.
I'm not gonna deny that was stupid.
So let me describe this as someone that does not watch NASCAR, knows very, very little about NASCAR. Basically, my knowledge of NASCAR consists of there are cars, they race, the first place wins, second place and third place matter, everyone else is a loser, and there's crashes sometimes. And Dale Earnhardt and his son, and then Jeff Gordon. Those are the only 3 names I will ever know from NASCAR, and now Smokey Eunuch, I guess. That's it. That was my knowledge. When I saw this clip that this man showed me of the guy just 2-wheeling it across the wall, one, I didn't know this was a physically possible maneuver you could do in a car outside of Midnight Club Dub Edition Remix 3, where you could just put your car, pop it up on 2 wheels, and drive like that. Oh, no, it gets better. He did this for basically an entire lap.
He did it for the last 2 corners.
The last 2 corners. It's basically an entire lap. Or was it a different
It's
track?
really easy to find. It's really easy to find. Just look. It has a
No,
nickname.
link him the thing. I want to know what his reaction to this is when he sees it, because
Sure.
I was flabbergasted when I saw it. Flam, like this isn't what you see in Formula One racing. No, this makes Formula One racing drivers look like they're in tricycles. They're in training wheels still.
Yeah.
All I can really picture is just are you guys familiar with Bad Piggies?
Bad Piggies?
So
No, it just like the energy that it has to me is just I don't know how I'd describe it, but
oh, my hair. I just pulled out a giant chunk of hair.
wait, huh? How did that happen?
Well, see, when you have really long hair like mine, sometimes you can get knots in it, and then getting the knots out, sometimes you just rip out a bunch of hair. Yeah, I got a big old clump of it.
So,
I got a couple of wicks there. Yeah, I can see that.
here you go, Flam. I found it.
Oh,
It's a short of it.
Yes, it's
So-
the guy in the front, if I'm not mistaken. Just watch that.
The guy
car.
the guy with the number 1 car. He'll be very easy to see.
Yeah, you'll know him when you see it.
so why the hell is he grinding on the bloody wall of all things?
Mm-hmm.
So this leads into the next topic for NASCAR, and that's what makes it so fun to watch. So for Formula One and IndyCar, they're known as open wheel cars, right? The
Mhm.
thing with open wheel cars is that when they crash, you can't go. Like it's very rare where you crash and you keep going, right? And NASCAR gets a lot of flack for them going left in circles, but there's a reason for it. It's because NASCAR, unlike the open wheel cars like those ones that you would find in IndyCar, they can beat and bang against their own cars and keep going for like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of miles. So
Uh,
in the first, yeah, so they can take a real beating. So
I can only imagine
um
what they'd look like at the end of a race. Like it would just be a pile of scrap.
Only if there's a wreck, though, because a lot of times there's not really a wreck until like lap 300 or some crap.
yeah, sometimes there aren't even wrecks. Sometimes there's just certain tracks that aren't just really built for it. They've more or less fixed it now with their race schedule because they go often to road courses and stuff like that. But back to Smokey Eunuch and how I'm going to transition this is that uh, him being the early pioneer, he completely abused the rulebook to his advantage by taking the car, right, and looking for a rule book for a rule. So I'll give an example real quick. Gosh, I need some water. Um, so in early NASCAR, you could bring your car from home, right? You could bring it from home, take it with you, and have it checked out, right? Rules set, uh,
I imagine there'd be a lot of
right?
custom made ones.
That's the idea. So he would have to say this with a straight face. So
Yeah.
the rule limit was that your car had to have 22 gallons in the tank for volume, right? So he took his he took a 24-gallon gas tank, right? Shoved
Mhm.
a basketball in it.
Hello. What?
So so when
Excuse me.
you
A
filled it,
basket?
so
So,
What?
wait. So when you filled it up,
Hmm.
it would
No,
it
go
would
on,
be
go on.
go for it would result in 22 gallons. Now, after the inspection, he would deflate the ball and take the ball out, and he has 2 extra gallons.
What did you like peel open the basketball, fill it with gasoline, and just
So
peel it back up and just dump it into the what?
now I told Secor this one. However, this is the one that I've been saving up.
I
Okay,
just want to know again how he got the ball into the tank.
so old it was much easier back then because opening up a gas tank, since it was much more unsafe, it was as easy as opening your trunk, opening the gas tank,
Oh, okay.
and
It's not
yeah.
like a gas tank is now. It was just a. It was probably like an actual exposed tank. If it just one rock goes flying, boom, you're up in flames.
Now,
I'm exaggerating.
here's my favorite story though that he did. So in 1980 in 1969, he had a car that he had been custom built for the Daytona 500, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so that at this point, he had been abusing the rule book for nearly 2 decades now. So there was like almost half the rules that were made were literally specifically because of him. So NASCAR officials tore the car apart, and so they took out literally everything: wheels. They took out like the frame. They took out the fuel tank. They took out the fuel tank, and he insisted that it was legal by the rulebook, and it was. But they handed him a list of 10 things that were wrong with the car, right? He looked at them and said it was preposterous, right? Walked over to his fuel tank, to his car, right? It was lying in the center of the track. He walks over it, gets in his car, turns down the window and says, "Make that 11," and drives off without a fuel tank in it.
What?
What happened to this afterwards? Did it just come to a full stop after fucking off from those inspection guys? Like,
Wait,
huh?
it gets better.
How so?
He drove back to his shop. It was 5 miles away from the Daytona 500.
Oh my god.
So
Did he have a secret fuel tank? Was this electric? Was this the
There
first
were no-
electric car?
ready? There were no extra compartments found in the vehicle.
How? Did Jesus just take the car?
So here's how he did it. So they had limited the amount of volume that you could have for the fuel tank, right?
Yes.
Said you couldn't have extra fuel compartments. He never specified how long the fuel line had to be. The fuel line is what connects the fuel tank to the engine. And so he ground a 11-foot long fuel line that was 2 inches in diameter that it could itself hold 5 gallons.
Oh my god. What? Why does this sound like the biggest fucking troll? This sounds like you if you were a NASCAR driver.
Wait, hold on. Here's a visual for you guys on what a typical car's fuel line looks like, okay?
Okay,
I don't know if I
I
can
will
post
want
it.
to describe
I'd love to
this.
see that.
Copy. See if I can paste it. I don't know if...
Give it to us, Daddy
Okay,
NASCAR.
hold on.
Hey yo.
Alright, so... won't let me send the link from Discord over. Hold on, I have to find it again.
Okay, you just
Alright,
copy
here we
image
go.
and paste.
Here we go.
Oh, well, my lover is back, hold on. But you paste it anyway.
So... the part you should be looking at is the line that goes underneath the car, right? The sole one on the bottom.
The one that
Yeah, what
connects to
about
the canister seals?
Yeah. So you see all the lines right here that have the fuel lines and stuff like that? There's one line that goes very close to the wheel and then darts all the way back, right?
Yeah.
That
What's
line,
the big deal with that one?
Yeah, he tripled the length of that line.
Hmm?
and the fuel, in addition, that the fuel lines back in the day were made of rubber, so when you put fuel inside, it expands. The hose itself expands. So
Me pulling up with a balloon car for the volume. I really. Also, this is just like coming from someone who knows jack shit about cars. So this is a whole new world to me.
I will admit,
Wait.
I know very little about how cars are actually made, or anything, but yeah, this, like, so he just tripled the length of the line that's basically the fuel hose, or the thing that's
Yeah.
sort of under that in this picture.
yeah,
And
he tripled it.
so
So
imagine your
it's just
car.
one huge mess.
Yeah, so imagine your car. You have your engine to, like, the far top side. Well, okay, not top side. To, like, the far left side is where the fuel hose is. There's a line that goes next to that and goes down to the right, all the way to the very rightmost side of your car and under, and then it goes straight back to the fuel tank. And then there's a canister seal that's, like, close to the wheel. And he basically tripled the length of that specific line which is insane to me. That man knew his mechanics, clearly.
Oh, so that's just two aspects. There's literally over 200 of them.
So he basically did
So,
200 illegal things in NASCAR.
well, it's not illegal if there's no rule for it.
Okay, well, previously legal things he did and made them be like, okay, he's too smart for us. He's Tom and Jerrying us. Or whatever.
Oh, so in addition to this, there's a rumor that he put his car and he made it 1/8 the size of a normal car, and that car finished on the pole. However, from what I could find, there is no such instance of that. The idea of that rumor spreading around, and after knowing all this, that most people figured it to be true.
I mean, I would probably think that it was true if the man put a fucking basketball inside of his gas tank filled with oil that would fuel his car further. I mean, just makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Here we go. I have here uh interview that he has on the sign. Before he died, this one was made in 1988.
Okay.
So in it there is at least 20 different things that he did. So for one example, he oh dear God. So
Where's this going?
he moved the entire outer body of the car, right, 3 inches, just so that way he could fit an extra part in.
Mhm.
And he at one point figured out a way he could put nitros in his car legally. However,
Legally.
so what he did is that he he froze nitros, right? And nitros, when you put it inside a car, is in a gas state,
Right,
right?
because
And so
it when you use it, expands and comes out of the exhaust port usually, right?
um right, oh, reverse, he it would be in a liquid state. He would
Oh,
superheat it, put it in a gas tank, right, and shove it in, and he would race around the track, and the temperature of the nitrous would cool down, and so by the third lap he would be going like an extra 30 to 40 miles an hour.
oh, substantially faster than everyone else. Cool.
Oh yeah.
So, okay, so he basically put it in. So it's normally in a liquid state, but he put it in a solid state. You said.
He would put it in a gas state.
So it
He
was
would race the
hotter
car
than
around.
normal.
Yeah.
So it was hotter than normal when he put it in. And obviously, as the car goes, it would cool off, even though it would probably be still warm and hot. But to the gaseous state, it comes into a liquid. So how does it? But I thought it becomes a gas when the nitros is used because that's what gives you the boost is the release of the gas, right?
So what happens is that he would turn it into a gas, it would go back into a liquid. But there's a system that's put in place inside the car, right? That superheats it again, but it has to be in a liquid state before it can go through.
I'm gonna have to
So
look
he's
up.
turning it he's turning it from a gas to a liquid. It goes in. He races around like 3 times, right? Liquid. The nitrous that is now in a liquid state would go through the engine, right? Finally, because it doesn't go through the engine until it's in a liquid state. And by the time it goes through the engine out to the end of the exhaust, which is at the back of the car, it would spurt out over and over and over again. Rev the engine a lot more.
Okay, so my main question was less about that, more just how nitros works. I'm just realizing. Okay, so I looked this up. During the combustion process in an engine, and this is from according to eastcustoms.com, or sorry, East Coast Customs. Again, I know very little about cars. So during the combustion process in the engine, at about 300 degrees, nitrous breaks down and releases oxygen. So nitrous would be nitrogen plus oxygen, presumably. Probably plus a couple other things. But this extra oxygen creates additional power, allowing more fuel to be burned, and nitrogen acts as a buffer to dampen the increased cylinder pressures, helping to control the combustion process. And you're saying he basically put nitrous, the compound substance, in a liquid state, or he starts it in a gaseous state, but it cools down to become a liquid state, and then it burns and releases it, and then it keeps doing the same thing because it keeps burning into itself until there's no more oxygen.
Yeah.
Good God.
Like, all of these terms don't make any sense to me, so all I'm imagining is like that one Walter White gif where just the caption I think of was NASCAR players trying to do funky shit with fuel. I don't know. I really don't know what it all means, but it sounds really funky.
Think about it like this. It's the Gus Fring meme where I put it's like there's a street racer up top. It's like, you put nitrous in your car to go faster. I put nitrous in my car to do it so many times your head spins.
I mean, that analogy makes a lot more sense in my head.
There you go. I'm happy I helped with really. I didn't think that was going to help at all.
God.
So I sent you guys a link to after what NASCAR looked like. This was after the Daytona 500 was built, which was then the largest track, right? So this is what it looked like.
Oh, those are some old cars. I see a Bel Airs. Those are like from the 50s, late 50s, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Like, did they already dampen down on like the amount of cars they had on tracks yet?
No. This is when they had it. This is when they had it.
Because like, yeah, I'm like still going off of the like the first outing on the beach that you mentioned at the start.
So this is the wreck that caused them to lessen the amount of cars on track. So if you go to 38 seconds
I'm right there actually. 39, 40.
There's a wreck in the back.
Oh!
Wait, watch this.
Oh my God! Oh!
You spin me right around. Oh, jeez!
Holy titties! Holy Jesus titties!
How do we...
You go,
guys?
you go.
How do we go about describing this to the listeners?
Okay, I've got it. Let me look at this one more time. I have the description. They have just crashed. It's hell. They're spinning. It's an infinity of spinning. 2. It starts with just 2. They're going 100 plus miles an hour. Oh, they're still spinning. More start spinning. Oh, everyone's crashing into each other. It's like a goddamn freight train just derailed. Everything is on fire. There is smoke. There is dirt smoke. They are not on the track anymore. So few are left on the track. More of them have flipped their cars. Wheels are on the racetrack now. Someone went backwards and flipped twice. Oh, they're all sliding now. They slowed down to a nice 20 miles an hour on the track. Oh, you have Jerry running out of his car. Oh, that one's flipped over. Oh, these two guys in white, they're just looking around. Oh, I don't know how to get this car back on its wheels, Jerry. Oh, I'm going to have trauma after this. How am I going to tell my wife and kids I lost my job as a NASCAR driver? No. Oh, this sucks. My car is totaled. They have the fire department out on the room. Oh, they're all worried. You can tell they have no
So,
idea what to do.
so
There you go.
miraculously, there was a 70 like cars on the track. This is 37 of them.
Yes.
Do you understand what that means?
That means that
No?
more than half of the cars on the track
There's
wrecked.
more than half of the cars. No, there's more than half the cars on the track that didn't wreck.
Oh, wait, you said there's more than 70. That's right.
There's like 70 cars on the track.
No, if there's 70, if
of them
it's 37, what's 37 times 2?
Oh. There's more than 70. There's like,
Okay, there you go. You say more than 70. You can't say there's 70 and then say that 37 is not more than half of them wrecked.
Hold
No.
on.
If there's more than 70, then that's where 37, which is a massive percent.
Point is, there's more cars. There's a lot more cars on the track.
There's a lot more cars on the track than there should have been, and 37 of them said, we're gonna go out of control and cause a tornado of cars.
Now, I bring that crash up because that's going to be very important for the next part,
Okay.
and that is I mentioned a name earlier, which was Fireball Roberts. He's in the Hall of Fame right now because he was NASCAR's most popular driver at the time, and he was pretty successful. However, in 1964, I have the date down here. In 1964, he was participating in the World 600 at Charlotte Motor Speedway. Right? It's located in North Carolina, but it's unclear what transpired. I have a link to the crash. It was put onto YouTube. And there's no like blood or guts or anything on it, but what happened was that Fireball Roberts and another Hall of Famer named Ned Jarrett, they collided their cars, resulting in a catastrophic explosion.
Did they both
In
survive?
the most little. So Ned Jarrett escaped his vehicle, ran out to Roberts' car, and he was trying to free him from the wreck. He broke Fireball Roberts' window open and opened the car and dragged him out of the inferno. So he would recall Ned Jarrett would recall receiving burns on his hands and face from trying to free Roberts. However, Roberts suffered second and third degree burns from the wreck.
Dang.
And he eventually passed away 40 days following the wreck.
Probably just to burn damage, right?
Yeah, it was purely because of the due to infections from receiving the burns.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's pretty tragic.
And so Smokey Yunick, following that crash, began a campaign for safety modifications to prevent a repeat of such disasters. And this is important because we mentioned Dale Earnhardt earlier and him dying in a crash. Well, it is misconstrued because most people believe that due to Dale Earnhardt's death, he's the one that caused all the safety changes when it really wasn't.
It started before him, but he probably chain reacted it later.
He
That's what you're
changed.
saying.
Well,
Because it started
Yes
with
and
Ned,
no.
what's his name? Griffith? Guerin?
Ned Jarrett
Jarrett.
Ned Jarrett tried to free Fireball Roberts
Yeah,
from his
and
burning
then you said he
vehicle.
started advocating. So he's the one who started the advocation. And Dale Earnhardt, probably because, obviously he got very popular. I think he's probably the most well-known NASCAR driver.
Yeah, but here's the sad part, okay? Unit was overruled repeatedly and allegedly was left NASCAR in 1970, and this was reported by NASCAR's owner, Bill France Sr.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you put two to two together, right? If Bill France Sr. had made safety modifications, right, Dale Earnhardt could be alive today, along with many other drivers. And so it took
more to happen. So it started earlier, but it needed more chain reactions to actually come to fruition. And obviously, Dale Earnhardt was more popular, more well known, and because of that, then they take action when they obviously should have taken action sooner.
Yeah, but
sounds about right.
In additional perspective, Fireball Roberts passed away in 1964, right?
Mm-hmm.
Dale Earnhardt died in 2001.
It took them 40 years to do more safety features.
They had a lot more safety features, and they were eventually implemented, but NASCAR didn't take them as serious until a famous incident in the early 80s where the cars eventually kept getting faster until they were reaching well over 200 miles an hour.
Which is obviously, if you get into a wreck at that speed, you just die, pretty much.
Well, there was a crash that happened where they had implemented a catch fence to prevent cars from going out into the stands.
So basically what could happen is a car could be going so fast that if it hits another car and somehow ramps, it goes straight into the crowd.
Oh, this is worse because there was no car contact during this incident. Let me bring it up real quick.
Yeah, there's a reason that NASCAR is a sport, by the way, everybody. And it's most racing involves a lot of stamina, especially NASCAR. Because NASCAR lasts a lot longer, well, any event in NASCAR typically lasts a lot longer than other races. Like, I don't watch much racing, but I understand Formula One. The series of Formula One lasts a long time, but each race in Formula One is not as long as a NASCAR race. But it still both require quite a bit of stamina. And that's just, maintaining focus. It's like playing a chess game. You need a lot of focus, and you need to pay attention and think ahead and all this. Same concept.
Well, in 1987, Bobby Allison was driving down the front stretch at the fastest track still today, I would assume, because Talladega is like 2.6 miles in length.
Oh, that's
his car. Yeah, his back left tire blew out, and his car started to tailspin. And the rear of the car was facing the.
Jesus titties! That's not okay.
Yeah. So the car itself,
I've ever seen one.
The car itself, it turned around, and due to the law of lift, where if you're moving around at a certain speed, right?
You just take off.
In this case, 200 miles an hour, 200 plus miles an hour. Air will go underneath your car and begin to lift it up like a feather.
Yeah, because it's air. Mm-hmm. I think it also has to do a little bit.
It has to go somewhere, and yeah,
it's going so fast that it just gives you lift. It's like a thing in aerodynamics.
And so during the crash, only his car eventually, because it happened at the front stretch, and in NASCAR tracks, typically the more well-known ones like Talladega and Daytona, they have a little bit of they're more of an oval, but on the front stretch, there's like a little, if you're looking down from a little bump, where there's like a small turn at the front stretch.
So it's his like car, a really, I kind of see what you're talking about. It's like,
Well, it went into the catch fence, and the entire catch fence went down. It blocked him from going into the grandstands.
Oh, I see
But
it
if it,
now.
yeah, if it didn't, then
If that
there could
wasn't
have
there,
been
people would have been run over, literally.
there would have been well over 100 fatalities in the grandstands, probably.
Yeah.
I mean, just looking at how much of a dent that made into
It's
it, like,
that
holy shit.
Yeah. There's like so much
that
just tire smoke just from that instance of his car colliding, but then also him taking down a pretty good portion of the fence. Like wow. And then everyone else is
mhm.
like slamming brakes behind him, more tire smoke.
And so that is where NASCAR started taking all these safety precautions much more seriously. But not serious enough before Dale Earnhardt's death. But that's where it mainly started. Because,
Okay. So that's where it got
they,
like the biggest surgence of a start, even though it started with that explosion, more or
yeah,
less.
it was heavily promoted back then by him. However, NASCAR didn't take action, specifically Bill France Sr. Um, I think I
Oh, I
have,
don't want to see this from the from the car behind him dash cam footage. Oh my
yeah,
god.
Like, what point in the vid is that actually?
it is at somewhere around 2 to 3 minutes. Oh, it's at the end. It's at the very end
Yeah,
at,
I
at
found
three
it. Like,
minutes.
yeah, that kind of stuff must be horrifying from that kind of POV.
I mean, imagine
Um,
if that happened in Formula One. The race would just be stopped.
yeah. So here's the thing with this. The reason why NASCAR took instance here is because this goes into the motorsports in general. Um, Rally cars back in the early 30s and 40s, you used to be able to. It was incredibly unsafe and borderline stupid, but they didn't know back then. But there was no railings for rally cars, and for rally cars, there's like think of like a dirt road, right? And then you have people standing on the side of the dirt road with the only protection they have are 2 foot sticks and a thin paper line to direct where the
Oh,
drivers are going.
oh no.
And so there was a crash where um one of the drivers spun out and went into the crowd, and lots of death happened due to it, including the driver.
Yeah.
And so that's why NASCAR took it seriously right here, rather than because then the fans were at risk. I
Yeah,
guess they
once you
figured that if it's I guess they figured at the time if the drivers themselves had all these safety precautions, they would be fine. But the second the fans came into risk is where they drew the line.
yeah, no,
Obviously,
as
of course, because
yeah.
if you let this happen with the fans and stuff,
It
then
kills the sport immediately.
it kills the sport immediately.
Yeah.
And so,
No, well, at least they did finally do it. I mean, like, I think, personally, I'm always more of, like, a safety first kind of guy. And it's like, especially when it comes to the people that are doing a lot of the grunt work, which in sports would be the players themselves. So the drivers in this case. They're the
well,
ones that
you
make the
also,
sport entertaining.
and I'll defend Bill France Sr. for overruling Unic here, and I'll tell you why. Smokey Unic had been abusing the rulebook for nearly 2 decades at that point.
Yeah,
He could have honestly thought he was just trying to get another advantage for him to exploit by
right.
adding all these extra rules.
That makes absolute total sense because it's like if you're notorious for exploiting rules, then obviously, they're just going to be like, no, we're not going to give you the win here. Even though, what Eunuch was doing was actually like, oh no, I'm serious about this one. That's what you get for being a jokester. They're not going to take you seriously.
Well, Eunuch wasn't just solely a NASCAR driver. He won the Indy 500 in 1963, I believe.
Oh.
Yeah, so it isn't recorded. However, it is known fact that he was a part of the team that won it.
So it's official.
Yeah, so you used to have like co-crew chiefs, right? And those would be like the mechanics and stuff like that. And so for the Indy cars, at the time, they were a lot less strict, and they said as long as the car was this big, this long, and this wide with these safety features, they don't care what you do with the car. And so he said, okay, fine, and he made like a roll cage, right, with a giant fin above it. And that was the first instance of like downforce, which helps turn the car. Downforce is where your car is hooked to the bottom of the racetrack, right? And due to the fin above you or behind you, would itself kind of like more like anchor towards the track, and instead of being lifted, right?
So it improves handling?
Yeah, it improves handling a lot. He wasn't credited with the win. However, he owned his own workshop called Smokey's Best Damn Garage in town. And that was on the side of the car that won the race. And it was known that he was in the crew at the race. However, they just didn't give him credit for it, which is kind of stupid. But you know, Smokey is in. Despite him not being in the NASCAR Hall of Fame right now, he's in like 20 other motorsport Hall of Fames, and the May Motorsport Hall of Fame, he was among the first 20 inductees put in 1990.
Oh, all right. And I know you want to advocate for him
2023 right now. Yeah, you understand how ridiculous this is. In 1990, he's in the National Motorsport Hall of Fame. That is, what, 33 years ago, and he's not in the NASCAR Hall of Fame, even though he is known to be a NASCAR cheating machine.
They don't like rule breakers. He didn't break any rules, but he broke rules that weren't written yet. Therefore, he's a rule breaker.
Here's the funny part. You mentioned Jeff Gordon earlier, right?
Uh-huh.
Jeff Gordon in the All-Star race that was held at Charlotte had a completely busted car, and NASCAR hated him for driving it. It is known as the T-Rex car. It was a second faster than everyone else's cars. He won the race, and they said he did the exact same thing where he's like, it's legal by the rule book. NASCAR's like, this car isn't legal. He said, it's legal by the rule book. And the owner of NASCAR went like, not after this race. So it kept its win, but it was told to never race again, right?
Right.
Why can't that same logic applies to Smokey?
No, that's a very good point. Like this is like a thing in baseball as well, because like I know that there was a period of time, I don't know if it still happens now, it probably does, but like steroids, because I think steroids at one point in time was like a thing everyone did, and then when everyone started to frown on steroid use in baseball, like the people like A-Rod, I think he's in the Hall of Fame, but there's a couple players who didn't get into the Hall of Fame or had previously been there.
Barry Bonds.
Yeah.
is like a huge one.
Yeah,
I
and they
think
like
I'm not sure if he's in the Hall of Fame.
I think
Who's
they
the
took
other
a
one?
couple
He played for the
people.
Red Sox.
I don't know a
Pete
lot of
Rose.
names.
Pete
Pete
Rose.
Rose,
That
yeah,
is the
Pete
biggest
Rose.
one.
And it's like, but if you look at their careers before, like they do any steroids, right? They have amazing stats, and it's like you just the points of their career where they're on the steroids, you just remove it. But it's like for
Oh,
NASCAR, like it's basically like okay, well they still did this, but we just changed the rules after it. So they still made breaking headway, and they deserve so much. For that because that's
Oh, on top of that, we mentioned Ross Chastain's Hail Melon move, right? It was
that's
legal.
referring
It
to the
was,
guy that got on
yeah.
two wheels and went well not on two wheels. He basically
That
ran into the wall and used the wall as a barrier to go faster, and got
mhm.
around a bunch of cars that way.
That was legal for that race. It was legal for the following race, and then was deemed illegal
Ever since
thereon afterwards. But he still gets the praise for finding it,
for
and for
innovation.
people calling it an awesome move, right?
Yeah, it's a very dangerous move, and it could have very much ended up badly for him, but it worked out. Like, it's innovative. Like,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes you do that, and it's like, so your case with Munich, and you said, because I know you've told me that you want to work for NASCAR and maybe do, like, stuff with their Hall of Fame, which I'm telling you, you should go for it. Like, you've been watching the sport for, like, such a long time. You've been a big fan of it. Clearly, you know so much about the sport. I know jack shit. But it's just like, pursue what you have passion in, my guy. And advocate for Smokey Unick to be in the NASCAR Hall of Fame. Make sure it happens. I know you can do it. The
I
goatedest
think
goat of innovation.
I just think he deserves it because it's funny. It's honestly funny, some of the stuff he did.
Well, I mean, yeah, but it wasn't in the rule book. He made it go in the rule book afterwards. Make
Just
that
read
11th
some of this.
drives off without a gas tank.
I'll finish all this off with reading an excerpt that he had. All the stuff I've mentioned so far were things you learned in the third grade. It was when you got up to the seventh grade that things became more advanced. So, for instance, there was a rule saying you couldn't alter and bore the stroke, which is an old mechanism that they used for like the Hudson car from the 1950s.
Mm-hmm.
The but those Hudsons had a bad connecting rod angle, and something had to be done. So I left the bore and stroke alone. Instead, moved the crankshaft, which is uh, an instrument that they used between, I believe, the engine or something else, right?
That's what started the car up
Nope.
back in those days,
Right?
right?
Yeah. Nobody said you couldn't. Another rule that he said you couldn't improve was the rate distribution and handling by moving the engine back into the frame of the car. But the rule said you couldn't move the body forward, so he moved it forward 3 inches.
Yeah, that it's those fine little details that you find. Like that's how you can exploit rules. And you make sure that other people can't exploit them when you exploit them and show why they shouldn't be exploited. Like
It
if you
also
do it like
goes to
that.
show that it also goes to show that no matter how many rules you make, sometimes there's always that one loophole. There's always the one loophole.
Yes.
Like evasion in freaking Pokemon. Acupressure it up, baby.
Yeah, there's always a loophole somewhere. But it's like you the reason that loopholes can get exploited is to show where they get exploited so that you further add rules to make sure that that exploitation no longer exists. That's what you're supposed to do, so it makes it fair for everyone else. But yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not advocating to exploit loopholes, obviously.
I am. It's funny.
Okay, no. Don't exploit loopholes, just point out where they can be exploited and how to stop the exploitations.
No. It's their fault for not putting in the rules, okay? It is their fault entirely for not considering every action.
This guy.
I'm seeing like a whole block of cheese with the loopholes that need to be plugged in. I don't know if if I look at it that way, I wouldn't even know where to start.
Well, alright then. You got any last words, or are we good?
Break every rule ever. It's funny. And
Only
it should be done.
do it if you don't get caught.
No.
No, I'm saying like cheat, but don't get caught. Jokingly.
Ooh.
Or otherwise we might have to chalk it down to a skill issue.
Skill issue. Yeah, no, it's always a skill issue.
It really is a skill issue by the rule committee.
It's a skill issue. They can't write them down. Anyway, I think we're gonna get out of here. See these nuts next time, I guess, since no one wanted to say anything. I'll just
see these nuts next time.
Next time, I expect some Pokemon stuff, probably.
Who knows, honestly, this is probably gonna get even more deranged than it already is.
Absolutely.